You're listening to the Armchair Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Armchair Cricket Podcast, a podcast focusing on Test cricket by armchair critics of the game. In this episode, I am joined by my co host Ajit. Hello, Ajit. How are you doing, man?
Hi, Giri. Well, things are sort of steady. My end. A couple of holidays, Bank Monday holiday, but also, hopefully there'll be very good weather. So something that we can enjoy. We'll spend a bit
hmm
of time outdoors and so on. What do you say?
are you doing anything adventurous outdoors, like playing cricket?
Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet?
No, but
Okay.
on that front, there is some good news forthcoming. In as much that our club is planning a few games internally. We are officially kicking off the season in air quotes, so to say. There'll be no organized cricket, but nonetheless, we'll be playing some competitive games among ourselves, and there are some exciting plans, which I would not like to discuss yet because they are going to be revealed shortly.
Okay.
So at
Okay.
least we are going to resume practice from this week. So that's already a very good thing. So I'm expecting this Tuesday, Wednesday, I'll hear more and we'll resume practice officially for the season. So I'm looking forward to that, Giri.
That is very encouraging news, I have to say.
Hmm.
And what we want to hear everywhere in the world as well.
Indeed.
I did hear some of my friends here. They were playing cricket outdoors. Today, I couldn't join them for I was engaged with something else. Otherwise, I would have joined as well. So I might do that next week. But
Hmm.
apart from that, you know how it is. Huh? So we have work every day, and then work ends somewhere. There is no clear end of day definition these days
Right.
because work and home are in the
Uh-huh.
same place, right? So but starting next week, so that's the first week of June, the public transport will return to its normal operating capacity over here in the Netherlands, as you might know.
Right.
So I don't know yet if I'll go to work, go to office, so to speak, because there is some sort of hesitation amongst my colleagues as well. They don't know if they'll want to share a cabin in a train or a bus. To come to work, and also because the work environment, we work in a contained environment with air conditioning, with no real ventilation. You can't open the windows and that.
Hmm.
And I heard that the chances of getting an infection or spreading might be higher indoors, so people are a little bit let me say they are a bit apprehensive right now.
Right.
But I expect that to change anyway in the coming days. So we are, in fact, allowed to go and work in the office, but I have to inform our respective managers in my company. However, when I asked my manager, he told me last week that I am the only one who was going around asking in such an eager manner about coming to work. So he said, "Hold your horses. Let's see what the other guys think, because I don't want to be there alone in the office. I might as well stay at home and work here." So, but how is it going for you? I mean, do you expect to go back to your work location anytime soon?
Well, not exactly. So we are still awaiting what the client will decide, of course. But from my parent company, we have some guidelines. So,
Hmm.
in essence, I expect that probably we will not be working from the client location or from any office until July 1st at least. But again, it's
Right.
all still up for discussion. I know for sure this is the case until June 15th, but maybe that changes after June 15th, right?
Yeah, yeah. And of course, to add to that, you know that all the schools are starting again. Schools, colleges in the Netherlands, they will all start in a week from now to
Hmm.
full capacity again. So there's a lot of influx of people towards contained spaces. The restaurants are opening as well, but they can only seat up to a maximum of 30 people at a time. That's what I heard.
Well,
So I don't know how they're going to manage with also with keeping the distance of 1.5 meters between two people.
hmm,
So this is going to be a challenge. So it remains to be seen how the general public, will respond to this. Will they act responsibly, or will they basically breach all the regulations and spread the virus? I hope not. But we have seen that in the Netherlands, at least, they have been able to contain the spread to some
Hmm.
extent. I think they have been successful. We noticed that the numbers are decreasing. We are now down to single digits
Hmm.
in terms of the number of hospitalizations each day and also number of fatalities reported. Of course, the exact number might be a bit higher, but it's still a bit promising, to say the least. It's also true that whatever happens now, we see the results of it in about 2 weeks from now. So we probably will keep an eye, or at least I will keep an eye
Hmm.
to satisfy my anxiety. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. But with Corona, I don't know. I mean, we still talk about cricket off field, right? So we still don't know when players will start coming out and playing in stadiums or even practice outdoors
Hmm.
in international arena, like we've been seeing. So
The major news points that we can discuss, as usual, we can start off with the COVID-19 related news. There are
mhm,
some important news. Let's start off there, right? So the most important news is that Cricket Australia chief executive Kevin Roberts says World T20, the World Cup this year is under very high risk, simply because it involves multiple countries and people coming in from multiple nations and all having to be quarantined separately and so on. So he's effectively given an indication, right, that this will take a lot of logistical things to fall in place for the World Cup to still go ahead in 2020. So on the other hand, he says there is a potential window in 2021, right? But then that will
mhm,
mean probably India, who are scheduled to host this in 2021, will probably be requiring to host it in 2022 and so on. So basically, he's asking that it be replaced, the World Cup this year be moved ahead by 1 year, right?
mhm.
And that'll mean quite a lot of, let's say, things that the Indian Cricket Board will have to organize a few things that at least, or they'll have to make quite a lot of changes. And also that'll mean, India, if were to host the T20 World Cup in 2022, they have a 2023 50-over World Cup already scheduled. So that means
Oh,
back to back World Cups over 2 years, and probably a revenue that would be shortened, because most sports broadcasters will probably come with a deal with both the World Cups, packaged, and so on and
yeah.
so on. So it brings a lot of questions, right? So
Mhm.
at least with respect to the World Cup, what are your thoughts? Do you think it'll go ahead this year?
I think it might get postponed or even cancelled. Like you said, if we miss this year's World Cup, T20 World Cup, that is,
Hmm.
and if it's held next year, and then we have another T20 World Cup or another big event coming up the year after,
Right.
so it doesn't make sense to have two big tournaments consecutive years. And next to that, we also have World Test Championships, right? So much of cricket already. But if we do miss this T20 World Cup, which I think is a very high chance of that happening, because October is not so far away. So we're entering June now. So we have June in about 4 or 5 months.
Hmm.
It will be very difficult to implement it. It all remains to be seen, however, how things shape up with regards to the two upcoming tours.
Right.
One between the West Indies touring England this summer. That's something we'll have to keep an eye on, because there might be some changes there, or if they do go ahead and play, that might set a good precedent
Right.
for the World Cup to follow.
Hmm.
And of course, I think um, we still have a lot of tournaments that have been either put on hold or postponed, like the IPL, for example, my pet
Right.
peeve. So if the T20 World Cup does get postponed or cancelled, we might have a very good chance of having an IPL this year before the end of the year. Because I think people were more worried about having to play too much of T20 cricket this year. And if one of them gets cancelled, a big event like the World Cup gets cancelled, then we might see the return of IPL. So, yeah, coming back to the England and West Indies tour, I think that's a bit promising, right? So I heard that Cricket West Indies have in principle kind of approved the
Hmm.
English tour. So do you see any uh, anything happening there? I mean, something good happening out of it?
Look, in essence, they have said that, yeah, they will go ahead with the England tour, and their players have returned to training under
Hmm.
the guidelines issued by ICC, of course, right? So in this case, they're sort of keeping their cards close to their chest, as they say. but in every indication, it looks like they might leave to the UK on 9th of June, right? So that means, there's a tour starting in July, but they'll have to arrive at least 15 days well before that, and go through the quarantine period and so on. So I think in the upcoming week, let's say the first week of June, we are going to hear a lot of important news. One is with respect to whether West Indies will be able to travel to England, and whether that tour will go ahead. That's indeed an important landmark, the restarting of sporting, at least
Hmm.
international sport as far as cricket is concerned, right? That's one thing. The other one, look, um, it looks like the ICC meeting that was supposed to be held on 28th of May has been postponed to June 10th, because some of the
Hmm.
constituent boards came up with some, well, there were already a few rumors that confidentiality was breached, and some of the news, for example, the World Cup and being under threat, whatever Kevin Roberts had to say, had already been leaked to the media before he came out and said it himself, right? So there was a lot of doubts about the confidentiality of that board and that body, and so on and so on. So I think they have launched a probe into it, and they have postponed the meeting to 10th of June. This is the official version.
Hmm.
Somehow I think there is a little bit more that is cooking, because look, there are a couple of things that had to happen. One, Shashank Manohar's replacement had to be chosen, and the front runner for this was Colin Graves from England. But there was a dark horse, or let me call him, if I can call it the politically correct thing, maybe, but I'll forego that. The Dark Prince has suddenly entered the fray, Giri. What do you have to say about that?
Who is the Dark Prince here?
Well, the Dark Prince of Calcutta.
Uh, um,
Well,
well, that might be interesting. I think, wasn't it Graham Smith who has publicly endorsed
uh-huh,
kind of this, the chairmanship role for Saurav Ganguly?
indeed.
So he might be a front runner. You never know what happened. Considering what happened with the BCCI presidency, the election that happened, or the so-called election,
Mm,
where he
mm,
was probably unanimously elected in the end. So we don't know what's going to happen there. I think he has an outside chance, but I still feel he has a lot more to do for Indian cricket. He might stay. He might sit on this role, the BCCI presidency, for another couple of years. Well,
mm.
his term is due to expire, I think, by this October or something, which probably will get extended. The MCC president role itself got extended for Sangakkara, right? So
Mm.
so this might also happen. So um, Ganguly is a good candidate, to summarize, but I think it's probably a bit too early for him. He might need a couple of years additionally.
No, I mean, he has some cricketing administration experience, about 5 6 years worth of it, because he's already been CAB chairman, Cricket Association of Bengal chairman, for 4 years plus, right?
Hmm.
And they have indeed filed a petition in the Supreme Court for his and Jay Shah's tenures in the
Indeed.
BCCI body to be continued beyond their, let's say, the stipulated 6 year cutoff, right?
Hmm.
So we are yet to learn about that. But look, so basically, if I were to just go into it a bit more in detail, Ganguly has the backing of BCCI, but then it could be him, or Srinivasan might make a comeback, they say, because when Ganguly was proposed as the candidate from the erstwhile Dalmia camp, so to say, right?
Okay.
Srinivasan, who is sort of on the opposite side of it, agreed that Ganguly be allowed to be elected without too many issues if he can get something from it, quid pro quo, as they say. So maybe he will ask that he be pitched as the president elect for the world body again. He's already been once, I think, the president. So this is one of the things. The
Okay.
other thing, yeah, if the BCCI might actually strike a deal with the major cricketing bodies, they could use this as a hammer, so to say, to strike a deal. If the World Cup is cancelled, then they persuade all the cricketing bodies, the major cricketing bodies, to allow the same window to be used for an IPL, maybe in
Mm,
India,
mm,
and
mm.
they may then make that as a hidden condition to allow Colin Graves to assume the presidency of ICC, right, the chairmanship of ICC, I must say. So there is quite a lot of, let's say, the waters look very calm on the surface. There's quite a lot of action underneath. It's very murky indeed.
Yeah.
So a lot to look forward to. I would only say we have to wait till 10th of June,
Yeah.
but quite a lot of intrigue going on here.
I'm amazed, Ajit. I'm really amazed. Who are your sources? Where do you get all this
Nah,
information from?
nah. Okay, look, I read some articles on the various popular cricketing sites. Also, there was a very nice discussion that was on Cricinfo,
Okay.
right? So they have their own podcast, Stump Mic podcast they call it, and there they basically highlighted quite a lot of these things, and maybe I put together some of these.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I'm not blaming you. I mean,
mm,
oh, it's also quite amazing, or it's very interesting to read between the lines. Whenever you hear
right,
some announcements or some news being made, you get to hear. I think you're quite good at that anyway. So you read between the lines and you deduce something out of it. And
well,
let's see. I think you can. Yeah, you might be right on a few things there. But
look,
Srinivasan, I think that's that's going to be quite amazing if he were to.
oh no, no, you
Yeah,
never know, you never
yeah,
know.
you
I
never
mean,
know with Srini. He's quite powerful. Yeah,
Srini Mama is very, very powerful and he's very clever that way, right? So he
correct.
always has an eye on the future, and you know, I think he's very astute that way. He knows what to give and where he can pull in a bit for himself, so to say, right? So
Yeah.
that's one thing. The other thing, look, I also listen to some online cricket discussions. For example, the Caught Behind podcast, where they've also opined that these things could be going on in the background. So
Hmm.
all of these sort of, I should give them the credit as well, where my ideas come from, right? So that's one thing. And the other thing, well, I want to clarify something. I tried to make a portmanteau of the Dark Horse plus Prince of Calcutta, and I ended up with Dark Prince of Calcutta.
Okay.
So it's really not a racial thing to say.
Okay.
I just want to make it clear to all our listeners. It's really not racial, but rather just it was a terrible portmanteau. I realized it was going to sound more racist than I'd intended. Anyway, moving further, look, ICC has issued these wonderful guidelines for cricket resumption, right? So there is a very finely detailed guideline. It's a very huge document. I've not had a chance to go through all of it, but KNCB, the Dutch Cricket Board, has sort of adapted most of it. So that has come to us, to our club, and therefore I know some of it. So England, for example, have already drawn up very detailed plans based on that. So there is guidelines for bowlers. Chris Woakes, who's already started training based on these guidelines from ECB, has sort of spoken out about this. So he was one of the first set of players in England who were mostly fast bowlers, to be frank, were chosen, and there were 18 bowlers who started this training across 7 venues, right? And then in the first week of June, they are planning to include batsmen and wicket keepers as well. So basically, there's a lot of social distancing, very strictly maintained hygiene measures. All of these are in place. So, for example, as soon as he enters the facility, first his temperature is taken. He's to answer a questionnaire on whether he's feeling unwell. All of these things. Then he has to enter his temperature into the app, right? And then he gets a green light, so to say, to go ahead and start training. And then he has his own equipment that he brings with him. He's given a set of balls that belong to him from that point on. So he uses only those to train. He's supposed to drive to a specific location from which he can be monitored and then sent to his part of the ground where he trains. He trains by himself. Whatever guidance he needs is given to him either through the internet or via phone. So he doesn't really interact with anybody during his training. And then it's all very interesting, right? Because it's very specifically tailored, and basically he's a international bowler, and people and the training staff of England already know very well what is required for his body and what sort of training is really required. But then there is also some bowling coaches who come in from time to time, but they stand far away. And there is always a specifically identifiable COVID coordinator, somebody who's sort of in charge of keeping safety regulations, so that no matter is training and where you're training, there'll be this person who's clearly identifiable wearing one of those yellow jackets, that you have to stand and you have to clearly identify yourself as that. And you'll always keep an eye on the proceedings, right? For example, where is the water need to be kept, because you can't deny people drinking water if they're playing a very intensive sport. But
Yeah.
then that means how do you make use of the restroom facilities and all of these. So all of these have been thought out very well. It's a very long article and a lot of things. I'll
Mhm.
not go into all of it, but when Woke spoke about it and there's a detailed article, you get an idea of how it's going to look like.
Yeah.
More and more fast bowlers come out and talk about, there'll be no saliva. This is still crazy. So the latest on the line of this is Jasprit Bumrah, who's come out and said the same thing, right? I don't know if you saw this, Giri. So basically, they'll need an alternative to maintain the ball, right?
Yeah.
So even Bumrah is a bit worried about it. So did you see this?
No, no, I didn't see this. No, I didn't read about Bumrah's hesitancy or whatever it is. But
Indeed.
yeah, but there are some question marks. I was watching this very short video of Ajinkya Rahane on Cricinfo, I think, There he talks about the changes that need to be brought into the game, starting with, of course, the material that it will be used to maintain the ball or maintain the shine on the ball,
Right.
and also about other things, other trivial things you might not have thought of.
Mm.
Something like celebrating a wicket. How are you
Indeed.
going to do that? People would normally get together in a huddle and do high fives and all that. How
Hmm.
are you going to do that now? You have to celebrate with a meter and a half distance apart, and
Yeah.
there's so many different things, and you can't get into a huddle. Teams
Oh,
usually get into a huddle before the start of a session,
yeah.
usually, and then there's some motivational speech by one of the designated guys, and then they head out back onto the field to start playing. And these are things which will not, which cannot happen under these circumstances. So I don't know how um, an alternative for this would be found for a ball, the material that will be used to maintain the ball. That's all fine, but
Hmm.
so I mean, do you know how what will be done here? And the other thing you mentioned about Chris Woakes' training regime and the new way of training that you mentioned.
Hmm.
I was talking to my neighbor here,
Hmm.
and he is an avid golfer, so he plays golf, and he
Hmm.
goes to a nearby golf course here every week. And what he
Right.
told me is all these major clubs where you are allowed to play, you are allowed to train, you're not allowed to use toilet facility.
Yeah. Indeed.
So he has to play golf for like 4.5 hours. Of course,
Hmm.
because of the weather, it's also a bit dehydrating. So even though he fills himself up with some fluids,
Hmm.
it kinds of get dehydrated through sweat. But
Hmm.
otherwise, what you can't hold in sweat has to come out of something else as something else.
All
And for
right.
that, you need to use a toilet, and the toilets are basically closed. So it's a bit of a challenge. And he also mentioned that because of this reason, some of the female members or the women members of the club have stopped
Mm.
coming. They've stopped playing. So these are also other things that we need to consider. So I don't know what will happen for considering all these things, but yeah, we'll probably get more clarity into all this with time. But people like me are a bit
Mm.
jittery. We always want things to happen fast, but we need to show some patience.
No, no. In this case, look, this has to be arrived at in a very calm, and carefully considered way. So, for example, ICC has already come up with some, some recommendations on how people should get together in a huddle at the beginning of a game, or even while celebrating a wicket, and all of these things, right? But
Hmm.
also, ECB have actually proposed the idea of a COVID-19 substitute. So what happens if during the game one of your players fall ill and or show signs of COVID-19, right? Especially in case of a test match, right? Then maybe there should be a COVID-19 substitute, somebody who can substitute like for like skills as usual, something like a concussion substitute. So all of these things are still very much thought of. So look, there will be a difference in the way the sport will be played in the upcoming couple of months, and I'm really hoping maybe even shorter than that, but even up to next 1.5 years, we'll see up to the end of the 2021 cricket season in Australia, right? So
Hmm.
about 18 months from now, we will see a lot of changes in the way the game is played at every level. All of these rules that you mentioned, including no usage of toilet and specific watering area, even better, bring your own water, don't even touch the
Mm.
water from the place. All of these are already recommendations even at my club for resuming sport in the next week, right?
Hmm.
They're already being enforced. For example, presence of a COVID coordinator, all of these are already done for the youth training that's currently going on, right?
Mm.
And there will be a change. There will be a change in the way we perceive sport and the way we play it, right? So you can imagine most of the people who are used to playing for a gallery,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
who derive some sort of impetus from the way the crowd reacts, people like Kohli, right?
Mm-hmm.
Probably they're going to play without it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There'll be needle in the game for sure with your opposition players, but it's still not the same when you're pandering to a whole gallery of, I don't know, 50K people,
Yeah. Yeah.
50,000 people, right?
Absolutely. And Kohli has said this out. He has
Mm.
told this even that he
Right.
would rather much prefer having a crowd. And
Mm.
the same with Federer. Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. They're all in this discussion. And Federer
Mhm.
has said it might be very difficult for him to play with empty crowds.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
So, but anyway, that's a different discussion. Go on. You
Well,
were saying.
that's more or less my point. So I mean, we'll have to really wait and watch, but it is to be recognized and accepted that the way we perceive cricket, both playing it as well as following it, will change a little in the upcoming days.
Mm.
So we'll have to make accommodations for it. Look, it's important that something like Test cricket and first class cricket survives through this, because it has the most impact for me. A shorter format game will somehow still go through, but the
Mm.
longest format game will probably have the most impact, because it will still mean people coming together day after day in the same location and probably interacting with each other. Even though you will keep it very limited, there will be a lot of interactions. So this one thing we'll have to take it very carefully, but that means we'll have to do whatever needs to be done to make sure the highest format of cricket, as we at least call it, survives through this
Mm.
crisis.
Mm.
So let's see. It's going to be a lot of wait and watch as far as I'm concerned, but I really hope Test cricket will come through this. Giri, it has come through the Spanish pandemic previously, the Spanish flu pandemic, right, and world wars previously. So it'll survive. It'll survive, but may take little bit more time to thrive. So we were really hoping it'll start thriving again
Mm.
with the Test championship planned and everything, but that might not happen as readily as we had really hoped,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
All right. Moving forward, unfortunately, now there are more and more cricketers or those associated with cricket administration being diagnosed with COVID-19. For example, Taufeeq Umar, the former Pakistan international, has been diagnosed with COVID-19. Then there is also an administrator from Bangladesh. His name is Shafiul Alam Chouwdhury Nadel. He's a BCB director,
Mhm.
and he's also contracted COVID-19, we've read. And based on all of these, it looks like we're going to read a bit more in the upcoming days of some cricketers having contracted the virus. And I'm really concerned of what will happen when international cricket really resumes, and will there be a wave? There's no wave yet in sporting world, but maybe there'll be a wave, because Bundesliga is currently going on, and I think it's very carefully being monitored by the German football authorities. So it's going
Mm.
to be very interesting how cricket also resumes this way. But given all of these, given all of these discussions we just had, it doesn't come as any surprise that ECB has actually deferred the start of its domestic season to August 1st. So
Mm.
you can pretty much imagine there will be a very, very truncated first class season, if that. But maybe the one day tournament also might be a write off, right?
Mhm.
And even the T20 blast might be a very truncated one, if that. So if you are only going to start it on 1st of August, I really don't see how they can have a proper county championship, right?
Mhm.
And how they'll be able to, probably they're going to completely forego the one day tournament and probably focus all their energies on a very short round of county championship, and maybe simultaneously host a T20 blast. So we read these news that England are really targeting from the first class level up to their international level. They're probably targeting two teams separately. That is, one team that can play a longer format and one team that can play a shorter format. So they are actually expecting that a test match might be going on, and the day the test match ends, a T20 might be scheduled on the fifth
Okay.
day of the test match, for example. So that
Okay.
means two teams separately can play the sport, and that's the only way they see how they can, play a lot more sport. And they are also sort of giving the same guidelines to their county clubs, right? County cricket clubs. So it's still to be expected some more news on this, the fixtures, how they're going to cram it all in. So it's going to be a lot of wait and watch, Giri.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said earlier, patience, my friend.
All right. Moving further, in a little bit of a setback, Sri Lanka Shehan Madhushanka, who played I think one T20 and I think two ODIs or even one ODI in 2018. He's not been in the pool of Sri Lankan players who've been playing for Sri Lanka in the last 18 months or so, but he a former international for Sri Lanka and still very young. He's been suspended from all cricket for an alleged drug possession. So it's very unfortunate to read that another international cricketer who showed some promise, has been suddenly trapped in the age-old, the vice-related thing. And let's hope, he's proven to be a little more resilient in the upcoming days. Moving on, if you were to look at some of the other news from outside the cricketing world, right? So, or outside the cricketing field, as we always used to call it, but now it's all outside the cricketing field. So, India and South Africa are probably planning a T20 series in South Africa at the end of August. So, if you remember, South African team had landed in India to play a T20 series, but had to be cancelled because
Yeah.
of COVID, and South African team flew back to home. So, in this case, it looks like this series might be played in South Africa and end of August, with all the things, sort of panning out. So it's still a lot of underworks, but if it all works out, we might see some more cricket, already international cricket from India and South Africa perspective. And then, of course, there's this also another furor. This is also, they say, one of the contributing factors as to why the ICC meeting did not happen on 28th, right?
Hmm.
So ICC have actually threatened to move the T20 World Cup that was supposed to happen in India in 2021 outside India, because there was some tax exemption that the Indian sporting body BCCI was supposed to have secured for the ICC, but they have not yet gotten this confirmation from the Indian government. So
Hmm.
if that is the case, that would be a real pity if India were to lose hosting rights due to some tax related issue, Giri.
Yeah, we had these issues in the past as well with Formula One. Do you remember? I think it was probably 2010, 2011,
Right, right.
somewhere near Delhi. Yeah, both the international circuit, and then I think the Formula One Supremo, the chairman of that, uh, the company that organized races, he was always complaining about these tax rules and all that.
Mm,
Eventually,
mm,
it happened. So I think we had 2 or 3 seasons, 2 or 3 races, in fact.
right.
Uh, and the last race I remember was Sebastian Vettel becoming a world champion 2011.
Mm,
So in his Red Bull. But
right,
anyway, so I think this is just a minor thing, a flash in the pan.
right.
Very soon there will be water on the bridge.
I hope so. And they come
Yeah.
to some consensus there. That's an
Yeah.
interesting one. Moving on, we are covering this over the last couple of weeks. So we'll also, cover this on unfolding saga of Umar Akmal's appeal. So Umar Akmal has come up with an appeal against his 3-year ban, and there is an independent adjudicator who's been nominated by the PCB to actually hear his case to see if he could be reinstated and so on. So it remains to be seen. So basically, he had initially foregone an appeal, and he had decided to accept the ruling that was going to be given to him. Then suddenly it looks like he's come to his senses after the 3-year ban that it seems to be extreme. So he's made an appeal, and a former Supreme Court judge in Pakistan has been nominated. So let's see how that goes for Umar Akmal. So we wish him all the best with that. In a very heartening story, Rohit Sharma has been nominated for the Rajiv Gandhi Khel Ratna Award. So he had an outstanding year in 2019. On the back of that, BCCI have decided to nominate Rohit Sharma for the highest sporting honor in India. It's called Rajiv Gandhi Khel Ratna. And it has also nominated fast bowler Ishant Sharma and opening batsman Shikhar Dhawan and India women all-rounder Deepti Sharma for the Arjuna Award. Right. So this is all very nice to see. And if Rohit were to win the award, he'll be the fourth cricketer. Sachin Tendulkar, Dhoni, and Kohli being the other three who have won the Rajiv Gandhi Khel Ratna. So it's very good. It's very nice to see. And Saurav Ganguly declared this in a press conference, right? So it's nice to read about it, Giri.
Usually, when there is a nomination, they usually end up getting the award. That's what
Mm,
I have seen so far.
mhm, mhm.
So I think Rohit Sharma will be given that award eventually, but it's well done to him. I think he's truly deserves that alongside the others.
Let's look at the trivia section, Giri. So last episode's question was an interesting one. Who is the only player to have played over 100 tests and never been run out in his test career? This is a fantastic achievement. We didn't have any guesses or any attempt at answering this question. It was a tough one, I can understand. The answer is Kapil Dev from India, who over his 130 odd test career was never run out. That's fantastic. That's a fantastic achievement for, especially given he's a fast bowler, and supposedly fast bowlers don't think a lot while running. But he was not exactly a fast bowler. He was really a thinking cricketer. He was a batsman as well, and he was a captain.
He was an all-rounder. Come on,
Indeed,
he was not just a fast bowler. Come on.
I'm just making a point. But agreed.
Yeah. Okay.
No, but you don't have to be run out because of your own mistake. There's another guy calling on the other
Yeah.
end. And to have survived 130 tests and never to have been run out, that's an excellent achievement, because I can't go through a single season without being run out or having run somebody out, right?
Yeah, but it might also be because he was a very strong leader.
Oh yeah,
The other guy
oh yeah.
knew when to run, when to not run. So Kapil Dev probably decided when to run.
Would simply sacrifice
Yeah.
himself. It's Kapil Dev, man. So,
Yeah.
well, apart from the jokes, nonetheless, he was also an excellent athlete. Even till the end of his cricketing career, he was an outstanding
Yeah.
athlete, Kapil, because he's one of those fast bowlers who never missed a test due to injury in his career. He was once
Wow.
dropped, but he never lost out on a test due to injury. So that also is a fantastic testament to his fitness, and therefore that might also contribute to why he was never run out, right?
He's also a very good golfer.
Oh yeah, no, I mean I think he's still a very avid sports person. He plays anything, I think,
Yeah.
like golf, for example, to stay fit, and he looks ridiculously fit at his age, man. He's 60 plus.
Like you say, Ajit, one of those anecdotes, whenever we meet, you keep saying, eat
Yeah,
whatever you want, do whatever you want, but look like him.
exactly.
Loosely translated from our mother tongue.
Indeed. No, indeed. Him and Viv Richards, man. I don't care. Be like that at that age. I don't care what you've done with your body. I don't care what you put in it. Right?
Yeah.
All right. So the trivia question from this episode is also a very interesting one. It's based on an anecdotal story. Which Indian cricketer was gifted a Gray Nichols bat by the Australian Cricket Board in the 77-78 series, recognizing his achievements with the bat on the tour? You have to look at it from outside the box, frankly. Don't take the story or don't take the question on its merit and start from the other end of the spectrum, I would say. That's the only clue I can give. But it's a very interesting story that follows this question. So I hope we can discuss this in detail in the upcoming episode, Giri.
Absolutely. That will be fun.
Right. So to all our listeners who are really keen on answering this question, we are really looking forward to your attempts or your, your the way you would like to approach this question. So to get in touch with us, you could write into us at Armchair Cricket Pod on Twitter or on mail armchair.cricket@gmail.com. Right. These are all known avenues. We mention this every episode, and they are also present in the episode notes. So you could also leave it as a comment on any of the apps that you used to listen. YouTube is also there, Facebook, all of these. So I hope you do listen to our episodes, and you encourage us when you give us an answer. We know you are reaching out to you. So we have a very interesting couple of weeks as far as organization of cricket from outside the field to the board meeting rooms, so, as they say. So we really hope quite a lot to look forward to in the upcoming couple of weeks, Giri.
Yeah, absolutely. I also look forward to hear about your own cricket club and the KNCB's new decisions or measures that will be announced for yourself.
Mhm.
So I hope to hear from you on that next time we speak.
Indeed. So we have a lot of interesting thing to discuss. So I hope all our listeners are tuning in again next time. Having said all that, it's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from him. Bye bye.
You're listening to the Armchair Cricket Podcast.